30 pirates, monk masteries, old friends, new enemies, a beholder ambush gone horribly wrong. Lots to unpack from this week's session. Hey everybody, it's Nick. Oh man, this was a big one. I want to apologize in advance. This is a long campaign diary, I am sure. It was a very long session, lots to unpack. This was sort of a mid-season finale for our players. Just so you guys know some real-life facts that'll come into play later on in the story. This was the final session before most of my players' spring break, and so we will miss 2 weeks upcoming. So I wanted to make sure that we got to a cool, dramatic, climactic, cliffhanger, but interesting ending. I didn't want to end in the middle of a fight or right before a fight was going to begin. I wanted to sort of end things cleanly and then set up some cool cliffhanger. But also, we had some time constraints on the place we were physically playing, so we couldn't play for hours and hours until I got us to that specific point. So that comes into play a little bit at the end of the session, but not too much. When last we left our heroes. So the events of this session have references to and ties to things that have been going on for literal months, in-game and out of game. So I can't catch you up on actually everything. There's 17 other sessions to follow up on to figure out all of the nitty-gritty details, but I'll try to make reference so you have a big picture of what all is going on and you're not completely thrown when I make references to things. So the players are from the nation of Krell, and they have been sent out to go and find a suitable place for a colony for that nation. They're sailing around these large archipelago of islands, trying to figure out a home. It's a very Caribbean-esque analog in my campaign setting. So they're trying to find a colony spot, and they have found a stronghold on an island that seems to be a pretty good location for a colony. And their primary concern has been clearing it out, making it safe, and now they are dealing with a beholder that is just south of their stronghold. It is sort of encroached into their territory from its home in the Underdark, and the players have been trying to figure out how to get it to go back to the Underdark. And so they've been making deals with it and trying to figure out, okay, if we give it something, then maybe it'll leave, and so they have since planned to renege on those deals and go back on them, and instead just attack and kill the beholder is their new plan. So we'll see how that goes, but that has been their primary plan going forward. They then went and opened up their treasure vault while they were going back to beat the beholder. And when they opened up the treasure vault, they found some cool things, but it also led Travis to be in contact with an entity known as Archduke Bell. That's right, one of the Archdukes of Hell. The Nine Hells is one of the Lords of Nine, so that has been crazy. But Hunter has been doing a lot of really cool role-playing as playing Travis, and so it's been really cool interfacing and interacting and getting to play an Archduke of Hell, so that's been really cool. But in addition to that, the players also have a ring with a wish in it, and a scroll that will protect them from the effects of the anti-magic cone of the beholder. So they're feeling pretty ready to go deal with this beholder, and so they decide not to. Instead, they go and deal with some pirates way up north, and they're in this massive cove cavern thing that has the pirates, like 30 pirates, and the pirate ship in it. And it was left with the pirate captain saying, hey, Clement, who has been sort of hovering over the water with his boots of flying, negotiating with the pirates, saying, hey, Clement, give me those boots of flying, and you can leave in peace, or you can just leave in pieces. And so pretty much things unfolded exactly as you'd expect. They tried very poorly to negotiate and interact with these pirates, and it pretty much turned into initiative really quickly. And so the players and the pirates attacked one another, and there was an enormous big knockdown, drag-out battle. There were like 30 pirates, the pirate captain, a pirate mage, all of the players. They were spread way out over this whole area. I used every inch of my 3-foot by 4-foot Chessex battle mat, drawing out this whole thing. And even then, 2 of the players weren't even on the map because they were way off on the pirate's ship itself, fighting some pirates on the ship. So it was really cool, big, dynamic battle. I feel like dynamic, interesting combats has been a weakness of mine going back for a long time, and it has recently gotten a lot better. I think this fight went pretty well in terms of how well I was utilizing enemies and tactics and strategy and making the fight interesting and dynamic in terms of enemies spread out and the like. So because of better preparation and cool tools I've been using, I think those fights have been going a lot better. But I will say that the battle felt kind of like a slog at times. There were 30 pirates there, in addition to all the players and the captain and pirate mage and everything like that. So it felt a little sloggish at times, but there were... I used minions for the pirates for the most part. So I used sort of minion rules, but I used 10 hit points instead of 1. So a weak hit might not finish them right away, but most normal hits would. So that didn't change all of that much for the pirates. So I used minions because there were so many of them instead of using the actual stat block that I was using had like 22 hit points or something crazy that the players would never have gotten through all 30 of those pirates with 22 hit points. So we used minions, and that's a very cool tool. I highly recommend using minions. You can go and look up what those are. They're from 4th edition, and I strongly recommend them if there's lots of little enemies in a fight like this. It's a very cool, useful tool. But the pirate captain also happened to be a monk master, and so those are, you have magical tattoos that give you cool special abilities, and you gain them by defeating another monk master, and you take their tattoos. And so this was sort of something I had set up for Tico, our monk player, and said, hey, you know these things about the world. If you want to pursue it, go for it. If you don't, that's fine. I don't care. So this guy was a master of vipers and locusts, and so very cool, creepy stuff. And it was a knockdown, drag-out battle. It was really tough because all of the pirates were so spread out that the players couldn't just like cluster them up and fireball a few times and destroy everyone. They had to engage and fight and retreat, and it was very tactical and interesting, and it was a really tough fight for the players. And at one point in time, it looked like things were going to be incredibly dire. The several players had gone down, were unconscious, were on low health, single digits. Travis was way off on his own, off on a far side of the fight, and he was unconscious finally. And there were still like 10 or 12 pirates left up, including the mage and the captain. And things looked pretty bad. And I thought, okay, we're going to take some players hostage, I guess. That we're not going to fight the Beholder because the players are going to be hostages. And that's how we're going to end this mid-season finale, is trying to escape from these pirates. Okay, that'll be crazy. And then Travis, Hunter, playing Travis actually, reached out to me on Facebook. Travis doesn't have a Facebook. That'd be very weird. He's a D&D character. But Hunter reached out to me on Facebook and said he was going to reach out to Bell and pray and ask him for assistance in this instance. And this happens a lot in my games, by the way. Players messaging me privately on Facebook, and it happened more this session than normal, but it definitely happens sometimes where a player is saying, hey, I'm thinking this, or there's a question that I have, or can you give me a follow-up, or I will tell a player a secret bit of information that they would know just via Facebook message. So I strongly recommend that. Passing notes if that doesn't work, texting a player, however you want to do that. Take them out of the room if you want, but I do that kind of thing all the time. I'll just send them a quick message on Facebook and be like, hey, by the way, check your phone. And so, because I run D&D off my laptop, and so that helps make all that easier. But he's reaching out to Bell and saying, hey, we need help. Could you help us out and just show me a sign of power so that I know that you're worth following? So in the midst of this battle, as things look their worst, the sand on the beach begins glowing red. And this being climbs up out of it, 20 feet tall, dark skin, wreathed in flames, and having a sword larger than a man, an enormous ball of fire in one hand. It's a pit fiend. Takes that ball of fire and dashes it on the ground. And there's an enormous explosion, and it kills almost all the pirates, except for the pirate captain, actually. He made his saving throw. And most of the players go unconscious at this point. Enormous damage, devastating, but turned the tide of battle significantly because the players were then able to pick up their friends and allies. And so this entity turns and looks over at Hunter, Travis, who is barely conscious, and says, "There, are you satisfied?" and sinks back down into the sand from whence it came. So after this, the players all stabilize each other, make sure they save their dying. The pirate captain promptly surrendered because he didn't want any of that business. And they tied him up, and then they collectively looked at Travis and said, "What'd you do?" So after a little bit of explaining about potential deals he may have made and sold his soul, I don't think it's gone that far, but at least he thinks maybe it has. The players all sat down trying to figure out, what do we do next? What do you do with this pirate captain? Do we just execute him? Most of the players were not on board with that because they are good-ish characters, neutral at worst. And so they decided, we're going to take the pirate captain, and in the morning, after everyone has a long rest, the pirate captain is going to have to fight Tico to the unconscious, not to the death, for title of master. Tico wants those tattoos, but he doesn't want to kill anyone for it, but he says, we're going to have a one-on-one duel, best man wins. And then after that, we're going to put him on a ship and send him to Volta and let him make an honest wage or a dishonest wage. He's not our problem anymore. So I thought that was reasonable. And they had this duel in the morning. This was a very, very cool, dramatic duel. This is the second time Tico has dueled this master. And it was a very interesting turn of events. He lost kind of badly the first time. And now he's geared up, he's leveled up, but this guy has gotten more powerful as well. And when I do one-on-one duels, I try to roll initiative every single round. I think it makes it a little more dramatic. It's, if they're on even footing, rolling initiative every round will oftentimes be the deciding factor about who wins. And as indeed it was this time. They go back and forth, they trade blows, they stun each other back and forth, and it finally gets to a point where Tico is about to make his last attack roll. He's done flurry of blows, and he gets 2 more attacks, and he's made one, and he's about to make his last one. And I ask him, Tico, how many hit points do you have left? He's got 17 at this point. And I know that the Monk Master is able to do about 17 to 20 hit points worth of damage each round, and I tell him as much. And he has 1 attack roll left, and I tell him the pirate captain has 3 hit points. So, which is true, I didn't lie or anything, he actually had 3 hit points. And so I tell him this because I want him to know that this roll is a critical roll. This is a very important roll, obviously. If he hits, he will win. But if he misses, it's the pirate captain's turn. And he gets to go, and he's probably going to finish, not for sure, but probably going to finish off Tico. So he rolls, and he hits, and he finishes him off, and he gets to describe the process of the tattoos being burned into his skin, and then he looks down, and he sees that the pirate captain doesn't have the tattoos anymore, and they stabilize the pirate captain, who sort of is accepting his fate, like the players are going to kill him now. But they are true to their word, and they do not kill him, and they sort of take him with them, and get on his ship, steal the pirate's ship, and all of them together make their way back to their stronghold. They make their way there. It takes a couple days to get there because it's not as quick as their airship, but they do manage to get back. And so as they finally get back, there are some interesting things that unfold. They're docking their ship at their pier in front of their stronghold, and they see a figure approaching them from the pier, from the dock. Someone is walking up to them, and this figure steps into the light, takes their hood off, and they recognize them. It's Callister. For those not currently freaking out, Callister is Jason's old player who died literally months ago, in-game and out-of-game. And Hunter, Travis really, has been trying to resurrect his dead friend and trying to get him to come back. And now here he is finally standing in front of them in the flesh, asking them how they're doing. The players are pretty floored by this, and this is actually something that Jason and I had sort of cooked up. He had great fun playing Callister here in this moment. His friends were sort of surprised, how'd you get back here, all this stuff. And this was something we had talked about. And so he wasn't really having fun playing Ryu, the fighter, and he kind of missed Callister. And we had talked about maybe making a new character that sort of felt similar to Callister. And I was like, well, there is a way that I have that would not be unreasonable or totally breaking the game or like a Deus Ex Machina for Callister to come back. Here's what I have in mind. Are you interested in that? If you're not, that's cool, that's fine, we'll do something else. But if you're interested, here's a cool thing. And so he was like, yes, I'm very interested. I would love so much to tell you guys what that is, but I cannot. Because it is pretty close to the chest. It is about his character, not one of my NPCs, and so I don't want to give away his own secrets to you. I feel like that would be unsportsmanlike, because what if other players find it and things like that. So, however, he does seem to be a brand new man. Some of the old things that plagued him before, his clumsiness and the like, seem to be gone. He seems to be much more sure of himself and comfortable, confident, and he is back in the flesh. So after an evening of bewildering events and massive pirate battles and fiery beings destroying those pirates and deals being made with devils and old friends coming back and tattoos and masteries, the players decide to deal with their next problem, the Beholder. And in the morning, they cooked up a plan. How are we going to beat this Beholder? What if we take some gunpowder from our ship that has just arrived and make explosive charges with it and just blow up the tower. That way we'll just seal off that whole thing, we'll destroy his foothold here, we won't have to fight the Beholder. That sounds great to us. And I firmly believe in sort of yes but with D&D. If the players come up with a really cool idea, an interesting thing that I think is somewhat plausible at least, I want to say yes. But I don't want it to just work entirely. Yes and is another concept in improv. I like yes but because it implies some negative connotations, like it didn't play out exactly how you thought it would. And so I sort of say, yes, it'll work, but there's some aspects that maybe are unintended consequences. So they go there, they're all rested up. They bring these charges along with them. They got like 5 charges, and they're going to go plant them around the base of the tower and blow it up. And as they get there, they're walking up. The undead that are walking around don't seem to pay them any mind. They are on the accepted guests list for this crazy undead party. And as they go up to start to plant the charges, the door opens and the Necromancer walks out and asks them how their mission is going, trying to retrieve the codex, and if they manage to succeed. The players lie very poorly about having tried and failed to recover the codex, and so the Necromancer says, shoot, that's a bummer. Wait here just a minute, I'll go get some cool gear and weapons that we found that maybe it'll help you out to go and retrieve it a second attempt if you're up for it. And the players are like, yeah, sure, that's cool. And so this was something that I was clearly contriving. The players did not realize this, but I wanted the Beholder fight to happen. I thought it would be very cool and dramatic and climactic, and so they're not going to fight it in its lair, but they're going to fight this guy because they lied very poorly. The Necromancer saw through it. He was ready and waiting. If they had ambushed and killed the Necromancer, maybe it would have been a bit of an easier fight. So then they as the Necromancer leaves to go and, what they don't know is get the Beholder. What they think is get some items. They go and plant these charges all around the base of the tower. And as they are finishing, the Necromancer opens the door with the Beholder following behind him. And they go, oh, poop. And so they're sitting there next to the charges and out in front of the door, kind of spread out and scattered, and they're like, guys, we hadn't read that scroll. There's a scroll that we have. If we're in 30 feet of each other, we read the scroll, and for the next hour, we're protected from the Beholder's anti-magic cone. It's going to be the thing that makes or breaks this fight. We haven't read it yet, and the Beholder is here. So they have a minor panic attack, and they try to negotiate a bit back and forth, and very quickly realizes it's going to be initiative. So Tico lights the fuse, but the Beholder has literal eyes in the back of its head. It sees this and attacks in turn. And so now the players are scattered and spread all over, and they're fighting a Beholder and a Necromancer with the Hand of Vecna. As they engage this fight, the Necromancer summons a demon, and so now they're fighting those two things and a Vrock as well. They've got the Necromancer blasts them all with a cone of cold. They do manage to gather together and read the scroll. Everyone except for Travis is protected from the Beholder's anti-magic cone, and so it's a tense fight back and forth. Now, hold up a second. It might feel like you guys are about to say, this is not a fair fight. Nick, this is not reasonable. A spellcaster that has 2 5th-level spell slots when the players only have one, maybe 2, I think 2 4th-level spell slots, that seems unreasonable, unbalanced. Combine that with a Beholder and summoning demons, this is a crazy fight, right? Yeah, it is. But they knew what it was. They knew there was a Beholder there. They knew what a Beholder could do. They knew there was a Necromancer. They knew the Necromancer could summon all kinds of undead. They knew it had the Hand of Vecna. None of this was a surprise to the players. If the players go and get attacked by something else, I feel a small obligation to make sure it is a reasonably balanced fight. If the players are said, hey, here, go and do this quest, go save the blacksmith's daughter from the kobolds, I would make sure there are kobolds, and then it would be hard enough for whatever level they were, but I wouldn't have there be an ancient red dragon that the kobolds were serving. That's unsporting. However, if you say, over there's an ancient red dragon, and the players go over there and there is an ancient red dragon, and they make a deal with the ancient red dragon to leave them alone, and then they go back on the deal to attack the ancient red dragon, I'm not going to nerf that ancient red dragon. It's going to attack them. It's going to wipe them out. If you go and attack something that is unreasonably difficult, you'll die doing it. And so, obviously, this fight was closer than an ancient red dragon against first-level players, but it was still a really, really deadly fight. And so, they're going back and forth. They have an interesting plan. They're not in the Beholder's lair, but man, this one's going to be a doozy. However, Tico managed to stun the Necromancer, and that proved to be his demise, which was kind of a bummer because I wanted to use this guy going forward, like teleport him out with the Hand of Vecna last second to create a recurring bad guy. But I try not to like pull the strings too much to have that sort of thing happen, because I try to let the dice fall where they will with things like that. Sometimes I'll pull the strings, but not usually. I'll just sort of let it go. So he stunned him, and after a round or two, that Necromancer was toast. And then things really turned for the players in their benefit at the start of the third round, because that's when the fuses went off and the charges blew up and this tower began crumbling down in the middle of the battle. The Necromancer had died, and the Beholder, seeing all of this, decides to flee. Now this is where I started to make some decisions, because in real time we had 30 minutes to get out of the space we were in because other people were coming in to use it. And so we had to sort of adjust some things, and the players didn't really know that. I had it sort of factored in. I'll tell you now, I changed some decisions I might have made because of that information. But looking back on it now, I stand by those decisions. I think they're reasonable and dramatic and make sense, and I don't think I changed too much unreasonably. So the Beholder fleeing was something that I decided as a result of the time. We could keep slogging it out and maybe more things would happen dramatically, and then later the Beholder would flee, because the Beholder was untouched at this point. But we don't have the time for that. So the Beholder is going to leave as soon as his Necromancer dies. He's going to fly back down into the hole that the tower has created and try to access his portal, teleport back home to the Underdark, and get out of here. So that was one of the decisions that I made as a change of that. However, he makes some parting shots on his way out, and 2 of his 3 eye beams do nothing at all. The players make their saves, nothing happens. The third one is a Death Ray targeted at Clement. And Clement rolls his saving throw. He's got 37 hit points left. He's a sorcerer. Clement rolls his saving throw. He rolls a natural 1. And our house rules are that if you roll a natural 20 on a saving throw, you take no damage. Not half damage or anything, you take no damage. But if you roll a natural 1, you take the maximum possible damage. A Death Ray is 10d10. That means 100 points of damage. And if it hits you, turns you to 0, you die. But wait, another player reminded Jordan, Clement's player, that he has Tides of Chaos, a wild magic sorcerer trait. He can roll at advantage. Now, normally, obviously, I would try to have the players like sort of declare this beforehand and then use at advantage. But he had already rolled at this point, and so I had said, you know what? These are extenuating circumstances. Roll again, Jordan. So Jordan rolls, and he gets a second natural 1. The players are all crushed, but boy, this was dramatic. Jordan's sitting there, he has 37 hit points left, and he takes 100 points of damage. He's reduced to 0, and instantly dies. No saving throws, no racial features, no class features, no one gets a reaction, he dies. And I made something up on the spot that I think is really, really cool, and you should add it into your games. I'm going to add it into mine going forward. When a wild magic sorcerer dies, they roll on the Wild Surge table. And it turned out to be, and it could have been like really bad, but it turned out to be a really, really cool, beautiful moment. Because what it said, the result was like illusory butterflies and flower petals sort of surround you for a minute or something. And so what I had that happen is as Callister is taking his friend and dimension doored 500 feet away to try and get some time to save him, he goes down, he wants to help him, and Clement is there, and he dissolves into these multicolored, beautiful, glowing butterflies and flutter all around. There's flower petals showering both of them. It was this really beautiful sort of, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark kind of moment. And really powerful, really cool, and very dramatic. Very dramatic. And so the players have knocked down this tower of bodies. The Beholder has fled. They defeated the demon that was still wreaking havoc, and they won. Sort of, but a friend died. And so it was a very sort of dramatic, climactic, cliffhanger ending. It was exactly what I was hoping for. I didn't sort of orchestrate it, it just sort of worked out that way. As a note about Beholders, I have used a Beholder twice now. And the first time it was a TPK, and this time it killed someone and did not die. So the Beholder, for me at least, has by far the best kill to death ratio out of any monster I've ever used, with 6 kills and no deaths. Beholders mean business. So the players immediately, as the session is ending, immediately turn to Jordan and say, hey, we have a wish left. We will use that wish to bring Clement back if you want him. And Jordan was sort of waffling right there in the moment, and I stepped in and said, hey, you don't have to make a decision right now. We have like 3 weeks in real life before you have to make that decision, so take the time. He's going to take spring break and decide if he wants to roll up a new character or if he wants Clement back. And so we'll see what he wants to do with that, or if we get a brand new character entering the party, who knows. And so that's sort of where we left things. It was a big climactic finale to our sort of mid-season break here. And the players may go and pursue the Beholder and like finish him off. They may try to avenge Clement. They may send for colonists and say, hey, the place is safe now, you can come. They may, once they do that, just take their airship and leave the islands. I don't know what they're going to do next. They have no obligation to stay here once they have a colony. So the players could go somewhere brand new, and I might spend some time frantically world building. Who knows? But it'll be very exciting one way or another. Thank you guys for sticking around to the very, very, very late ending of this. I try to usually keep these like 20 minutes-ish. This is going to be a little bit longer than that, I think. And so there was a lot of stuff, a lot to unpack, a big climactic battle. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in several weeks.